What was that? Truly, that was some of the worst lawyering I've ever seen. And what's really bad about it is it didn't have to happen. You know, I feel like this. Look, if you're not prepared to do it right, don't do it at all. Because Gwyneth Paltrow is going to be called eventually by her team. You'll get a chance to cross-examine her eventually. But if you're going to do this, you have to come into the ring swinging. I mean, it has to be so precise, almost surgical, what you want to cross her on. And remember, and those of you who watch this show, you courties know, the point of a cross is not to let the witness talk. You do the talking as the advocate. You tell the story. You get it out there. You make them look bad. You draw out all the inconsistencies and whatever you've got to make them look bad in the eyes of the jury and make your client's story look great. All this to me, all this did was make Gwyneth Paltrow's story look all the more believable. It truly did. Let me bring in my guest right now to talk more about the lawyer, Gwyneth Paltrow's responses, and what this jury might be thinking of it all. In Orlando, Florida, one of our favorites on this show, jury consultant and human behavior expert, Susan Constantine, up early with us on Monday. Susan, good morning. I couldn't wait to talk to you all weekend. I was chomping at the bit to get to this segment. So can we start with what the jury might have been thinking watching that display?
I think confusion. I think the jury is looking at that and going, what is this attorney trying to show us? Because it wasn't very clear, as you stated, Julie, is that you want to lead your client, right? Asking the appropriate questions, getting yes or no answers. But she didn't do that. She opened it up. And the thing is, she came in without any sort of structure. So it was really hard to kind of follow what direction she was going to go in. And plus, if you think about it, where the jury was placed, could they really see her demonstrating those angles and feet placement and how she slid or didn't slide? I don't know. I thought it was very ineffective.
Yes, I'm with you, Susan, absolutely. And there were times when I was watching her and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, she appears starstruck. And that is the last thing you want in a celebrity trial. You want to treat them just like anybody else because they are people like anybody else. That's the thing with celebrities. And I think a lot of them are just dying to be treated normally, you know, and don't want to fuss. But the way she was looking at her all starry-eyed, I've got a clip for you to analyze, please, Susan. This is where she's talking to Gwyneth Paltrow about her being a good tipper. Take a look.
I'm assuming, and you're under oath here, that you're a good tipper.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I wouldn't expect anything less. I've got a couple kids, actually about your age, and one of them, not your age, your daughter's age. Sorry, I'm not that old.
I know, it's laughable. It really is.
Well, you know, when I'm looking at, there's a lot of things that are going through my mind in what I'm seeing. First of all, I think that she is grilling. You know, she's got that bright, fluttery eyes, and she's looking over at Paltrow, and she's trying to connect, right? She's trying to build this rapport, likability. But here's what I'm really seeing, too, is I see a quintessential mean girl. So she's got these flattering lips. She's very complimentary. She's trying to build rapport from right in front of her. And I think she's trying to engage her with creating this likability. And then she daggers her, right? Then she throws those other little dagger comments in. So I think it was a kind of a lure. It's a combination of things that are going on. Again, I thought that it looked really unusual. I think it made her, Paltrow, felt very uncomfortable. You could see her kind of shaking or blinking her eyes, and then you would see this Duchenne smile like, really? Really?
Right.
So anyway, I thought it was funny.
Right. And Gwyneth Paltrow doesn't really do anything to make it less awkward, right? I wanted to ask you about that in terms of the human behavior expertise that you have, Susan. What were you seeing in terms of the dynamic and what Gwyneth Paltrow was giving her back?
Yeah, so when I analyzed her facial expressions, you know, I like to code things and bring the scientific data to it. So I was analyzing her mouth mainly because she shows a lot of or lack of emotion in her mouth. So, you know, she sometimes has that chin raiser. She does this lip funneling. You know, she does a lip stretch. And when you see her eyebrows kind of turning up, that's kind of distress of pain and suffering. So she's listening as the questions are coming across, but at the same time that her expressions in her mouth are more telling. When she hears the question, it's called, the question and answer. After she answers the question, you see her go into her neutral expression in her mouth, and then you see a lip corner stretch with a little bit of dimpling. So what that's telling me is that's a concealed smirk, concealed smile, but that's actually her neutral. You see her doing that after almost every single comment. So it's a contrived smile.
Oh, that's so interesting, Susan. I love hearing this. This is fascinating. So there was a point in this mess of questioning. I don't even want it to call it a cross because it really wasn't consistently a cross. She sometimes asked her something leading, but then most of it was largely non-leading. There was a point where Gwyneth Paltrow goes to give her an answer and asks the attorney what her name is. Let's take a look back at that clip together, and I want to get your take on both sides, please.
You learned that Mr. Sanderson broke 4 ribs.
Yes.
Okay. And that he sustained a concussion.
Correct.
Okay. That he was taken down on a toboggan.
Yes.
Did you learn of that day?
No.
Did you inquire?
What is your name again? Sorry. Kristen?
Yes.
Sorry, I was going to say Kristen.
It's all right.
I think you have to keep in mind when you're the victim of a crash, right, your psychology is not necessarily thinking about the person who perpetrated it.
Oh, Gwyneth Paltrow dropped the mic on Kristen, didn't she? Susan, and
I would say, ouch.
Yep.
Ouch.
That was an ouch moment, for sure. And you know how this is. I mean, you help lawyers in the way that they fashion their cases and to be effective before the jury. And she asked for it, didn't she? She opened the door with those questions, and Gwyneth Paltrow just stormed right through.
Yeah, and Paltrow, she is a very seasoned actress, right? And she's also been in court before. She knows court decorum, and she really amplifies that. So she really kept her own, and you could tell that in her, oftentimes that she would have her chin up a little bit, her nose would be up a little, and that's just showing a level of importance that, and I wouldn't call it an elitist, but just someone that is of authority and believes what she's saying. And I think that when she said to her, well, excuse me, and she was so polite, excuse me, what was your name? To me, I was the attorney. I was like, I've worked all this hard. I've been grilling on you this whole time. You can't even remember my name. Right. So I thought that was a great mic drop. Loved it. I want to play it again. I want to see it again.
We're going to do it, Susan. We're going to play more after this break. You're going to stay with us to give us more expert analysis, please. And welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. The civil case between retired eye doctor Terry Sanderson and A-list actress Gwyneth Paltrow is really heating up in Utah. Paltrow is being accused of recklessly skiing and running over Sanderson, causing him to suffer broken ribs and a brain injury. However, Paltrow claims it was Sanderson who hit her. On Friday, Paltrow was called to the stand by the plaintiff's team and then asked to give her account of what happened on the ski slopes.
He struck me in the back. Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Okay, I know, but you said I can still watch my children ski.
Yes,
and
meaning
directly into my back by someone, which is what happened.
Yes, exactly.
What's the pending question? It sounds like they're saying the exact same thing.
What's the question?
The question is, you were watching your children ski when you were struck in the back.
So that's asked and answered, Your Honor.
Overruled?
I was skiing and looking downhill as you do, and I was skied directly into by Mr. Sanderson. I froze. When he slid between my skis, I absolutely froze, and I don't remember yelling or screaming until I was very angry at what had happened.
You were furious and said you skied directly into my back at the top of your lungs.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I apologize for my bad language.
Why would the lawyer ask her these questions? To me, folks, this is an early call. This is a really early call. But when I was watching this on Friday night, I was thinking to myself, the plaintiff's team just sealed the deal for the Paltrow team. They just won it for Gwyneth Paltrow. That's my opinion, early call. We'll see what happens. Let me bring in a very special guest joining us this morning in Orlando, jury consultant and human behavior expert, Susan Constantine. Susan, so when we think about this dynamic here, we have a female attorney cross-examining, or should be cross-examining, I should say, a female witness. And this was clearly strategic because this lawyer came out of nowhere. Many people were like, who is this? Because we hadn't seen her at counsel table. We hadn't seen her argue any motions outside of the jury's presence. And it was very clear to me watching this that she was brought in to question Gwyneth Paltrow, maybe because the male lawyers might have thought, oh, we'll have a woman do it so it doesn't seem like she's getting beat up. Your thoughts on this strategy, please?
Well, we saw this with Camille, with Amber, right?
Yes.
In the death case. So it's kind of that strategy. In fact, I felt like at times that she tried to mimic her. There were moments where she'd say yes or no, and she tried to use that same strategy. I don't think that was working well. I think that if this were a sexual assault case, I think it would make sense to have brought in a woman to ask her about those sensitive questions. But all this did is create antagonistic, confrontational type of environment, that hostile. No, I think that Paltrow handled it really well. But you could tell that she was annoyed because you could see her eyebrows would just raise and freeze, right? And she's trying to explain it to her. And then she would get annoyed. And you could see this not only in her eyebrows, but then you could see it again where she presses her lips and then she does that stretch and then you see the little dimpling aside. So there's this communication that we're seeing between the two of them that's not just verbal, but it's nonverbal. So it's these messages that are being sent back and forth between the two of them. And I don't think that this was a good strategy. As I said, the only time I've seen this really work well, of course, is if it has to do with a child sexual battery case, sexual molestation. This kind of case, I don't think it was a good strategy call.
I agree with you, Susan. You know, and we've talked before on continuity with the lawyering, how personally, whenever I teach it, I always teach people, you know, try to have the same consistent voice in front of the jury as much as possible. If there's some reason where maybe there's some kind of, I don't know, maybe expert testimony, for example, and you have a lawyer on your team who's really good at speaking science and doing DNA questioning and make it seem really, really easy for the jury, then okay, maybe you bring them in just for that reason. But to just play musical chairs and because, oh, we've got a woman who's a witness, let's bring in a woman who's an attorney. My thing is, it doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man, just bring in somebody who knows what they're doing, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I saw it in the Bill Cosby case, the first trial. It was the same thing, a bunch of male lawyers, and then they brought in a female lawyer to question the victim, Andrea Constantine, and the female lawyer had no clue what she was doing. It was embarrassing what she did up there. And the victim was really great. And I thought, you know what, this strategy about having a bunch of men say, oh, let's bring in the woman for this, bring in somebody who knows what they're doing. You know, whether they're male, female, should be the goal. Susan, any last minute thoughts on, you watched this all, anything that you think is important to take away from that mess we saw on Friday evening in the courtroom?
Well, I think that to your point, Julie, she just kind of whooshes in there, right? And she's not really even parallel with the defendant or the plaintiff. Well, she's plaintiff and defendant in this case.
Yeah.
She's not even paralleled with her, right? She's angled also. She's feeling really uncomfortable because she can't even make really ongoing eye contact with her. She's all over the place. Her body language, you know, I train attorneys how to use their body language in court, right? This is like a good case of what not to do because she's flailing all over the place. Her emotions, she's emoting too much. And I tell this to a lot of my lady clients, especially in leadership, is that when you're talking about something that's really important, you have to come to a neutral expression. Over smiling diminishes your authority and power, especially in the courtroom. So the whole presentation of what she did was off, and it goes against what I train my leaders in my courses.
Oh, I love it. I want to sit in on one of your training sessions one day, Susan. Love to see you in action. Thank you so much for sharing all this on the show with us. I know we're going to be calling you again because the testimony is going to get better and better. The plaintiff's going to be on the stand today, and then we think Gwyneth Paltrow again, perhaps tomorrow or another day this week. Susan Constantine, human behavior expert and jury consultant, thank you kindly for all of that.